The man was desperate for answers. He had spent countless days and nights wondering about someone extraordinary, someone whose very presence seemed to light up the lives of everyone around them. This person wasn't just kind or talented, they were something more, something he couldn't quite explain. Every encounter left him with a lingering sense of awe, and yet also confusion. He needed to understand what made them so unique, what gave them that energy that drew people in like moths to a flame. That longing for clarity is what eventually brought him here. Now he found himself sitting in a dimly lit room, the air thick with mystery and anticipation. Across from him sat a psychic whose reputation for uncovering hidden truths was unmatched. The atmosphere was quiet, broken only by the faint flicker of candles, their flames dancing shadows along the walls. In his hands, the man clutched a photo of the person who had captivated his thoughts, holding it tightly as though it carried the answers he so desperately sought. His heart pounded with nervousness, each beat echoing louder in the silence. Would this psychic truly reveal what he needed to know, or was this yet another step into the unknown? He could feel the weight of his decision pressing down on him. This wasn't just idle curiosity anymore. It felt like something bigger, something that could change how he saw not only this remarkable person but also his own place in their story. Slowly, with trembling hands, he placed the photo on the table between them. The psychic looked at it, her expression calm yet strangely knowing, as though she had already glimpsed the truth hidden deep within. She didn't rush, didn't speak right away. Instead, she let the silence stretch, her eyes studying the image as if it contained layers invisible to anyone else. The man leaned forward slightly, caught between fear and anticipation, his breath shallow as he waited. At that moment, time seemed to slow. The flicker of the candles, the creak of the wooden chair beneath him, the faint hum of his own heartbeat, everything felt magnified. He realized that this was more than just a search for answers. It was the beginning of a journey, one that could reveal truths he wasn't sure he was ready to face. And yet, he knew he couldn't turn back. The photo, the person, the mystery, they had already drawn him in too deeply. The psychic finally reached out, her fingers brushing lightly against the edges of the photo. There was a calmness in her touch, yet an intensity in her gaze that made the man's breath catch. She closed her eyes for a brief moment, as if tuning into something beyond the ordinary, something hidden within the fabric of the image itself. When her eyes opened again, they shimmered with a kind of wonder that felt both reassuring and unsettling. The man leaned in, his pulse racing, knowing that the words she was about to speak would carry weight far beyond the moment. "This person," she began softly, her voice low but certain, "is not ordinary." The simplicity of her statement struck the man with surprising force. He had always sensed something different, but to hear it confirmed stirred both relief and unease within him. The psychic continued, explaining that the energy carried by this individual was rare, deeply significant, and filled with purpose. They were not merely special. They were meant to be a guiding light for others, someone whose existence would touch countless lives in ways most people could never imagine. The man felt his chest tighten as he listened. A guiding light? The phrase lingered in his mind, echoing with both hope and confusion. He wanted to ask what that meant, but his voice barely rose above a whisper. "What do you mean by that?" he managed to say, his words trembling with the weight of his uncertainty. The psychic placed the photo gently back on the table, her eyes never leaving his, as though she was not just speaking to him, but to something deeper within him. Her explanation unfolded with quiet intensity. She told him that the soul of the person in the photo had been shaped by immense hardships, losses, struggles, and pain that would have broken most people. And yet, instead of destroying them, those experiences had forged them into someone stronger, more compassionate, and deeply resilient. "It is as if they have been forged in fire," she said, her tone filled with reverence, "emerging brighter and more unyielding with every trial." The man sat in silence, feeling the heaviness of her words settle over him like a blanket. He struggled to process it all. Could this truly be the same person he thought he knew so well? The one who always seemed cheerful, steady, and unshaken? Had there been pain hidden beneath that surface? Pain he had never noticed? The realization left him stunned, almost guilty, as if he had failed to see the truth behind their smile. The psychic, sensing his hesitation, gave him a gentle nod. "You see only what they allow you to see," she said kindly. "But their light, their strength, it comes at a cost. And the path ahead for them will demand even more." Her words, though spoken softly, seemed to reverberate in the air, leaving the man both enlightened and burdened at the same time. The man's heart sank at the psychic's words. He felt a chill run through him, as though he had glimpsed a truth too heavy to carry. His mind raced, the same question repeating again and again. Were they in danger? His voice cracked with urgency as he asked aloud, desperate for reassurance. The psychic shook her head gently, offering a faint, comforting smile. "Not in the way you fear," she replied. Her tone was steady, but the words did little to calm him. Instead, they painted a picture of trials ahead, challenges that would test the person's spirit in ways most people could not even imagine. Her explanation pressed on him like a weight he wasn't prepared to bear. This extraordinary person was destined to face struggles that would overwhelm others, yet their purpose was not to fall, but to rise, and in doing so, inspire. The thought was both beautiful and terrifying. How could someone so remarkable, someone who already carried such strength, be asked to endure even more? The man clenched his fists in his lap, torn between admiration and fear. He wanted to protect them, shield them from what lay ahead, but the psychic's words made it clear, this was a path they had to walk. As the reality sank in, a storm of emotions swept through him. Responsibility settled heavily on his shoulders, blending with confusion and doubt. He wondered what role he was meant to play in all of this. The psychic had spoken of his importance, of his connection to their journey, but she had not given him a map. He felt small in the face of it, unprepared to meet the expectations that seemed to hover around him like an invisible burden. His chest tightened as a haunting question rose from within. What if I fail them? His voice trembled as he gave the question life, whispering it aloud to the psychic. For a moment, silence filled the room, broken only by the flicker of the candle flame between them. Then, the psychic offered a small, enigmatic smile, her eyes reflecting something he couldn't fully understand. "You won't," she said at last, her words soft yet resolute. "Because even your uncertainty, your care, that is part of what they need." The simplicity of her answer struck him deeply, cutting through the fog of his fear. Could it really be that his very concern was enough? Still, as he sat there, her words lingered like shadows, leaving him both comforted and unsettled. He felt enlightened, yes, but also overwhelmed. To know that someone he admired so deeply was destined for a life of tests and storms filled him with awe and sorrow all at once. And now, to realize he was tied to that path, bound to play a role he could neither see nor fully understand, left him trembling. As the session drew toward its end, he could only sit in silence, replaying her words in his mind, wondering how he could ever rise to meet what was being asked of him. When the man left the psychic's room, her words clung to him like a haunting melody he couldn't shake. Every step he took echoed with questions, every breath weighed with doubt. He kept wondering whether he should share what he had learned or keep it buried deep inside. The thought of telling the person terrified him. What if the knowledge burdened them? What if it planted fear in their heart, or made them feel as though they had to live up to something impossibly high? Yet keeping it to himself felt just as wrong, as though he were holding back a truth too important to hide. The days that followed were filled with restless thoughts. He would see the person smile, hear their laughter, and feel a pang of conflict twist inside him. Did they have any idea of what was coming? Did they sense the storms waiting on the horizon? He longed to warn them, to prepare them, but the psychic's words echoed back to him. This journey was theirs, not his. Their strength was not in knowing what lay ahead, but in facing it with courage, grace, and resilience. Still, the weight of silence gnawed at him, leaving him torn between honesty and protection. He found himself pacing at night, staring at the ceiling, replaying every detail of the session. The psychic had said he was connected to their path, that his actions could shape their journey. But how? Was it something he needed to say, something he needed to do, or was simply being there enough? The ambiguity was maddening. He feared making the wrong move, feared that one misplaced word could break the very person he wanted to protect. The pressure built inside him like a storm, each doubt striking like thunder in his chest. At times, he wondered if perhaps he wasn't needed at all. Maybe this extraordinary person was strong enough to carry their own light without him. Maybe his presence, instead of helping, would only complicate things. That thought left him hollow, as though he were nothing more than a bystander in a story too vast for him to belong to. And yet, deep down, something refused to let go. He felt tethered to them, as if some unseen force had woven his fate into theirs. Whether it was destiny, coincidence, or something beyond understanding, he couldn't deny that connection. The uncertainty ate at him day after day. Should he speak the truth and risk altering their path? Or should he remain silent and trust that the universe had a plan neither of them could yet see? Both choices felt perilous, each carrying consequences he could not predict. He turned the questions over and over in his mind, but no answer came. The only thing he knew with certainty was that his heart was bound to theirs, and no matter how heavy the burden became, he could not simply walk away. He was already part of their journey, whether he was ready or not. After days of tormenting himself with questions, the man finally came to a quiet realization. He wasn't going to find all the answers, not now, maybe not ever. The psychic's words had opened a door, but they hadn't given him a map. He could not control the future, nor could he shield the person he admired from every hardship waiting ahead. What he could do was trust in their strength, trust in their journey, and trust in the unseen forces that seemed to be guiding their path. It was a fragile kind of faith, but it was the only anchor he had. He decided, for now, not to tell them what he had learned. It wasn't because he doubted their ability to handle the truth, nor because he wanted to keep secrets. It was because he understood that some journeys are meant to be walked without forewarning. If they knew the challenges that lay ahead, it might cloud their instincts, burden their spirit, or make them second-guess the very strength that defined them. Their light had always shone brightest when they faced the unknown head-on, and he couldn't take that away from them. This choice brought him a surprising sense of calm. For the first time in weeks, the storm inside him began to quiet. He realized that his role was not to predict outcomes or carry the weight of destiny on his shoulders. His role was simpler, but no less important, to walk alongside them. To be there when the nights grew heavy. To support them when the storms raged. To believe in their light, even when they could not. It wasn't the role he had expected, but it was one he was ready to embrace. As he sat with this new understanding, he felt the fear within him begin to shift into something else: resolve. He didn't need to have all the answers. He didn't need to understand every detail of the journey ahead. What mattered was that he would be present, steady, and willing to stand beside them when the path grew dark. That was enough. And in some strange way, it felt as though the universe had been leading him to this realization all along. With that acceptance came peace. He no longer carried the same frantic desperation for certainty. Instead, he carried a quiet strength of his own, a determination to honor the bond he shared with this extraordinary person. Whoever they were, whatever they were meant to do, he knew he would be there, not as their savior, not as their answer, but as their companion. And in that role, he finally found something he hadn't expected: his own place in the story.